Chris Duffin here with Brad Cox of Active Mobility, and we're going to hit a topic on hip side shift. Seems to be quite topic these days, and we've been shooting a number of videos over the last few days, and we thought we'd put something together where we walk through an assessment of a number of different reasons that could be causing the hip side shift. Because a lot of people I see want to always jump to a conclusion that it's a specific issue and here's how you fix it. So we're going to walk through assessing it from a number of different ways to figure out what's going on. Brad, you're going to cover active mobilization and repatterning.
Yep.
And then I'll jump into, with each of those assessments, what we find, what we would do from a firing pattern or prep work. So Brad, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, essentially the idea is that you want to find a bucket that you're going to fall into to give you a strategy for what should you clean up that day before you lift, because assumptions, right, are easy to make but often wrong. And so we're not looking for highly technical stuff here. These are things that you can do yourself just to run through to see, do we have any glaring pattern problems that are showing up? If you do, we're going to teach you how to clean them up, right, and then cue it back into your lift. And this is before you would go into your squat, you know, before you lift that day.
And it's easy to jump to those assumptions too, because we can go, oh, hey, glute's not firing, but why is that happening?
Right.
So we're going to run through the chain of checking those things and making sure we're addressing the root of the issue here.
And there's clearly a lot of components to this, right? And so one of the main things we're looking for is what possible restrictive pattern, right, is getting in the way of that firing.
Yep.
You know, not like assuming that it's just inhibition or a strength issue, right? But what other area could be locked up causing that to not fire? That's what we're going to try to identify. Walk you through 4 different assessments that you can do on yourself.
This side of painless dysfunction.
Right.
That's right. Okay, let's start with, what are we going to assess first here, Brad?
Let's look at internal external hip rotation. We're going to use Brady here. This is one you can do yourself at home. Lie down on the ground. If you know you've got a hip shift problem that's happening down in the pocket, this is one that you've got to clear first. Actually, Brady, let's twist you this way, or yeah, good that way. That we can see internal external hip rotation.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, and just to be clear, when we're talking about hip side shift, it could be just shifting in the bottom of the squat before we come up, shifting on the way down into the squat, or it could even be the tilt left or right of the pelvis. Or a combination of those.
Or yeah, right. You can have the shift and the tilt.
The tilt can cause the shift.
Or a rotation, right? And that's the problem. And that's why we're not trying to address every possible cause here. The pelvis, there's so many factors affecting this. We're really looking for some big things, you know, to identify. Because if it's one of those, you might be able to clean it up pretty quickly and then get into your lift.
Yep.
So what we're going to clear first is a really simple self-assessment for internal external hip rotation. You're going to bring your knee up to 90 degrees. You're going to create a 90-degree shelf here. And then all you're going to do is pass or actively try to rotate as far as you can. You should be able to clear about 45 degrees here, no problem. We're really looking for asymmetries. So if you're locked up both sides, it's actually less of a problem than if you're locked up one side and not the other.
Exactly.
And then you can passively take your hands, right, and try to rotate that to 90. So Brady's got really good external hip rotation here, no problem. And so we're going to see, is that even both sides? The other one he's going to look for is internal, right? So we can immediately see his internal here is a little locked up. He immediately starts hiking into his low back, and this is part of the hip shift stuff. If you don't have good internal hip rotation, what are you going to do? You're going to hike your pelvis as you drop deep into the squat. So this is just an indicator that maybe that's going on, all right? He's literally hitting a wall here. Not atrocious, I've seen worse, right? But something you should look at. And then let's check the other side. And rotate. And then passively. All right, and this is an awesome example.
Yeah, so we've got difference left to right.
We've got difference left to right, right? So this is very common. You're going to see an external hip rotation problem on one side and an internal hip rotation problem on another. There's no way he's not shifting down in his squat, right? And he might get through it quickly, right? He might even mask it. It might not be a glaring problem, but it's going on. And you know because he can't clear that. And look at his internal rotation on that side. Dramatically better, right? So that's a lot of what we wanted to communicate, which is you can kind of get an indication for, is this going on yourself quickly, you know? And you should, because maybe you drove for 2 hours, right? And your hips are locked up and you don't even know it, and you're going to go put tons of load on there. That could be a mistake. So,
all right.
So that's one, right?
So with this assessment, we're going to jump into, active mobilization and repatterning.
Yep.
So
So
Start there.
the idea is to do opposite side stuff, right? So what did we found? We found an internal hip rotation problem on this side, external on that side. So instead of trying to mobilize everything in the body, you're going to target the key factors that would be affecting that, right? And that's where you're going to start with. So for Brady, let's start with the front of this hip. And you're going to look in the rectus fem area, TFL, right? Anywhere in this area up through here. You're going to use one of the balls, and let's lie you face down. Perfect. And actually, let's scoot you 45-degree angle so they can see. All right, so we're going to find a gnarly trigger point in there. Put the ball down there. He's going to bring his opposite knee up to 45-degree angle, and he's going to lie down. Okay, so drop that elbow down for me. You got a good spot?
Yep.
Yeah, he knows, all right? So that's step one, right? A lot of what we're working is making sure that hip extension is happening properly, right? So there's a few different ways you can progress through this trigger point. One is to just work on glute activation and trying to get this knee off the ground. Now you see what happens, right? He tries to go into that, he can barely lift his knee here. He should be able to get easily into 10 degrees hip extension, right? Well, that's telling you that this locked up spot, right, is actually preventing him from firing this correctly. Okay, so we would need to work through that. Now, you can have your friend, who's a boomstick, all right, and you can get into the outer hip here at the same time. So we're using our vice function, sorry, and let me clear for this. And Brady's gonna go through internal, external rotation, all right? At the same time, your friend's gonna be applying a little pressure into the piriformis muscle. All right, so now we're hitting this from both sides. Brady has that pressure?
Good.
Good. All right, so he's just working through 5-6 reps, okay? Let's see if that woke anything up. You can help him a little bit if you got a friend around. Just help guide him through. All right, so that's where he should be able to go, all right? What do we notice the first time he tried to do that? He couldn't, right? So everybody squeeze that glute. Do you see improvement, right? All we did was go through a few repetitions of internal external hip rotation, right? Under compression. That wakes it up, right, and mobilizes that tissue. All of a sudden now he's got a potential to fire a muscle he couldn't before, okay? And then we're gonna do some really good cueing stuff to say, hey, let's make sure this guy's working, you know, in the squat. So that's the one side, right? And what did he also add? His other side was external rotation problem, okay? Which means these outer guys here are probably super locked up on him. So for this, we're gonna have Brady work, actually, let's come into this position, okay? And which hip? That was internal, external, right? So sit up on the ball here. Perfect. We're gonna go into a clamshell motion, okay? So you're gonna bring that knee, I want you to drop onto that elbow. Chris, can you cue all of his stable positioning?
So push the floor away here, broad shoulders, square that up, stack shoulders one on top of the other, separate here. Good. Push that floor away a little bit more. There you go.
Awesome. Great stuff. So that's the stable position, right? He's got that ball on a trigger point in the outer hip. You'll know when you're on it. Hunt around, okay? You're gonna prep. Yet again, if you have a partner, you can be working the front. It's not a good angle to show this. The front of the hip here into that attachment area, okay? Or you can do some self-rolling work when you're in this position, all right? So let's say nobody's around to help him. He can take that hand and work that bar back and forth, okay? This is gonna be a prep before he goes through active range of motion. Then, do that for about 20 seconds. Then you're gonna take the bar away, and then you're gonna bring this knee up to this knee, keeping that stable position, okay? You should have no problem in getting through this. That's not necessarily gonna be the case. You can see how he's struggling to get that knee all the way up. It's very common. So you're literally putting that muscle through its active range of motion here. It's gonna make it much more responsive to cueing. Find 2 to 3 trigger points, follow the same progression, okay? There's a lot more things that you might need to do in here, but this is kind of like, first thing you gotta hit, all right? So, we mobilized internal rotation on the other side, external on this side, did some active cueing, active mobilization in there, and then we're gonna work it into a kind of a cueing right before the lift.
So we're gonna do some cueing right before the lift. So we'll go ahead and let's pull the ball out of there. And we're gonna stay pretty much in the same position here. So you're gonna be on the elbow. And there's a lot of different movements we could pick from. So we're just, I wanna pull out a couple. All these available are in really in-depth cueing perspective on kabuki.ms. So we're gonna go ahead and put that knee to the ground And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cue your hips, or move it here to begin with. But first we're gonna think about those same strategies from, push the ground away, broad shoulders, neutral head position, shoulder stack, no movement here. You're gonna open this hip up and then close it. Open and close. And you're pulling with this here. Pull it closed. All right, and this time you're gonna pull it closed and keep it closed and crush my hand right here. Come up on it. More. There we go. Good. And now, I'm gonna move this leg back here a little bit. You're gonna keep crushing that and lift here. Fight me here. There we go. And so we're working that glute and adductor sequence together. Go ahead and come back down. This is a lot of work. And there's some ways we can actually add some band assistance to this. Go ahead and hand that smallest one there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wrap this. Put your arm through here. So I've got this fighting that rotation of the hip right here. So now we're gonna go ahead and close the hip. Again, you can keep this leg back here, but rotate into it. Boom. And watch to make sure that you're not rotating up here. It's rotating with the hip. So close the hip up. Close. Good. Now crush this. Now come up with this. Fight me. And that's a good time, is it not, Brady? Yeah. All right, come down. Then we may move into, real quick, into a, go ahead and get on your knees. Hands and knees here. So we're gonna move into the tactical frog. There we go. And so relax, and now you're just gonna move back and forth a little bit. Boom. Come back here. And now when you drive forward this time, you're gonna move this leg up into rotation. So drive forward as you drive that in. Boom. And then back down. And now this time drive forward with lifting the other leg. And really focus, if you want to do this, is thinking about filling and inflating here. This is really important. Broad shoulders, good. So we noticed the first time he did it, he was starting to move here again, which we want to avoid. So if we control and stabilize this core, that'll help lock down here. So we're not moving the spine to gain that movement, okay? All right, that's good.
And that's literally that internal hip rotation problem that he was having. So now we've actively mobilized it and then worked him through some dynamic patterns so that he's waking that nervous system up, saying, hey, okay, let's fire this. Let's get into this position correctly. Which is great prep work.
Excellent.
Squat.
So let's move into next assessment.
That's one problem, okay? And there's many others. And you can have a combination of products.
Yeah, that's right.
Problems, as Chris was noting, right? So that's internal external hip rotation problem. Now, at the same time, you might also be walking around with a problem in activation and active straight leg raise, okay? So we're gonna look at that because it's very common to see this both internal external rotation and then one side much worse than the other on active straight leg raise. So lie down, face up for me, everyone. For this, we're gonna do this two ways, okay? And if you have a partner, he can help you with this. If you don't, you're gonna use your forearm to assess this. But first, you're just gonna raise one leg in the air 90 degrees, keeping it straight, okay? You just wanna see how far you can go. You should be able to clear about 70 degrees. But yet again, we're really looking for asymmetries more than anything, more than just range of motion, okay? And then do the same thing on the other side. Yeah. All right, so we're already getting a little problem going on there, right? Now, we also want to know, where's he raising that from, okay? So if you've got a partner, they can literally use their forearm. Arch your low back for me. You're going to put the forearm under here, right? You're going to raise as far as you can until I feel him compressing my arm here, and then I'm going to tell him to stop, okay? And we're going to look for differences here. This is going to tell us where that mobility is coming from. So raise that right leg in the air 90 degrees and stop. All right. That's all he actually has before he's dumping that into the low back. And drop, and raise this leg in the air 90 degrees. And so, oh yeah, actually, drop, try that again, and raise, and stop. Oh, that's even worse, okay? So what are we seeing here, right? This is a tendency, right? Left side's worse than the right, so we already know there's a difference in this pulling ability, right? Now, there could be a lot of causative factors for this. We're not gonna assume what's actually causing this, right? This could be an activation problem, deep hip flexors, or it could be something locked up in the erectors or hamstrings. You cannot make an assumption for this. This is not assuming that this is a hamstring tension problem. It is not most of the time. Those guys are just tight, trying to stabilize when they shouldn't have to, okay? So this is yet again just giving us an idea, right, that there's a pulling problem going on here, right? We got some deep core activation issues and we need to clean that up. Now, the first place you want to hunt around here is, because we notice him immediately dumping it into his low back, right? We're gonna use the ball there, right? We're gonna work into a spot kind of in the low ribs, above the QL muscle here. And we're gonna put this ball, this is gonna keep him from being able to go into that lumbar position, right? But it's also gonna be an active release. So that tendency to recruit that is gonna be negated because of the ball, okay? Got a good spot there?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, that's what we're looking for,
That's
right?
a happy face.
That is the happy face, right? Because he doesn't even realize most of the time that that spot's even there, right? But that is causing dysfunction that he's not aware of in terms of how he can activate that psoas glute complex. And not because there's necessarily something wrong with psoas or glute, right? So we're gonna just walk through a quick cueing for this, right? You can use a band, you can use it yourself, or you can attach it to a rack and pull a whole bunch of tension on this. So the ball is under that left side in the erectors, okay? He's gonna raise up, driving into the ball. And then I want him to breathe into his belly, pack like you should, push, inflate that tire, right? And then I want you to squeeze your glute and crush this down to the ground. Good, okay? Let's do 4 more reps of that. Breathe in and let this thing pull you up. Pull a lot of tension on that band, even more. You can grab it higher up if you need to. Good. And so let it pull you, all right? Try to relax into that, yes. Good. And then squeeze that glute, crush, drive into the ground. Good. We're just doing a little cueing associated with this, releasing that locked up spot, okay? Go through 4 or 5 reps of this, both sides. This is to tell us how much of this problem is actually because of that back issue, and how much of it is a raising problem because of psoas, because we're not really addressing that. You can already see he's starting to improve here. And we know he's not cheating because the ball won't let him, right? He cannot go into that thumb position, okay? So there's 4 or 5 reps there. And then let's just check, just for fun, all right? Just to see how much of that, clean that up, all right? Forearm and squeeze, raise. Okay, so he already gained about, what was that, 15?
Yeah, 10, 15 degrees.
Degrees, right? That was 5 reps, okay, before he started compressing to his low back, which means you can do that, you know, before your lift. And you're not shutting anything off here. You're not just passively stretching, right? You're activating, okay? So that's a great sequence to release this gnarly guy who's actually affecting psoas glute complex.
Excellent.
Yeah. Anything to add to that?
No, that covers that quite well. From a preparatory standpoint, moving into to squatting, we're going to move into doing the rear leg elevated split squat or Bulgarian split squat. Again, working that psoas through its range of motion and hitting that glute complex. So getting all that on, because you're going to pull your shirt up so that you can expose the belt line here, and you're going to do a rear leg elevated split squat. And we're looking to see if this rotates to the left or the right as we're going into this movement.
And we can see
Pull it
a few things.
Yep.
Pull this shirt up, right? So
he's rotating up here on the right side. So we're missing some external rotation on that side. So let's go ahead and switch to the other leg. And we're a little bit more even on that side.
yeah, way more even.
Yep. So your post-assessment would be the same thing to see if we make change. So we're going to go ahead and have you face the camera. So we're moving into the Bulgarian split squat, and he's got his left leg forward, which is this part we were losing some external rotation of the hip on. So we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do the split squat again really quick. Good. Now you're going to come up, and there's 2 different ways we're going to do this. We're going to do it as an RNT, where he's going to be fighting the band to cue the glute firing while we're doing this. And then also, what I'll start with is actually just pulling forcibly, cueing it into external rotation. While he's doing that, we're going to throw some weights in his hands. Here you go. You grab kettlebells. We just happen to have some plates real handy close by. And what we want to do here is we want to cue good stability here in the core. So we want to make sure that he's got some weight, he's got some inflation, he's got some lats engaged, all controlling this weight. So it's really important to kind of load this upper structure because we need this working in combination with that. So I'm going to force this into rotation here by wrapping this band around his leg. Right here. There we go. So he's going to do the split squat, and I'm going to just force that over. Boom. You're going to have a fair bit of tension on that. I might even use a heavier band to pull that over. Okay? Now if we're going to do the R&T method, I'm going to make him fight the band. So here, now he's going to work against that band. Don't let the band win. There we go. You're going to go a little bit lighter on this side. So this band would be an appropriate band for that. You probably want to step up to a larger band for the forcing the rotation. And then you would just check and see which method worked best for you. So again, filming from the back or having a partner from the back, but we're really trying to force this into rotation as we're moving into the movement, stabilizing that core, which is going to stabilize that left-right pelvic tilt that we've got going on. So there's another assessment that we could do prior to this as well, Brad. Do you want to walk through that?
Yeah, so this one, right, is dynamic, active. He's going through a loaded pattern, right? So we also want to check, does he even have some of the base mobility, right, and activation in the ability to tuck that pelvis and engage, or does he not, right? So for this, we're going to actually use the couch stretch as a way of assessing this, right? So you're going to put one foot up on a bench, you're going to drop down. What we're looking for here is the ability to stay tall, okay? So he already can't even get into a tall position.
That is not the happy face.
And he's already in an unhappy face, right? That's already your tell, right? So if you can't get into that, well then you're not going to be able to maintain proper abdominal activation and stability of the pelvis as you load down, okay? Which means we got to mobilize the vastus lateralis muscle and psoas in there so that he can get into that hip drive position. Because, yeah, there's zero glute activation. Try and engage that glute. And
About 50%.
about 50%, and he's not changing any positioning when he does it. He like turns it on, right? But he cannot engage or tuck underneath because these guys are so locked up on him that it's just pitching him forward. Okay, so if that's going on, you need to know that because otherwise, positionally, you're not going to be able to even get into the proper extension pattern to then cue it. So let's check the other side just to see if there's a difference. And try to stand up. Okay, do you see the difference? This is dramatically better, right? So the one side, the side that we already knew there was cueing problems on, right? He was pitched dramatically forward. Now he can at least get up into this position. Now try to squeeze that glute, tuck the pelvis. Are you finding that easier to do?
Yeah.
So that's that left-right problem that we've already identified in our earlier assessments. And this is why we're showing you a few different ways to look at this, right? Because they all play into each other, you know? We knew he had an internal hip rotation problem because the first assessment, active straight leg raise issue, and now we're realizing that some of it might be coming from the fact that this is so locked up, right? That it's causing all this disparity in motion, right? So this would be a big tell that you've got to work that left quad vastus lateralis psoas. Okay? Now there's tons of strategies for how to do this, right? We're going to walk you through two simple ones to start, all right? Let's go into the psoas glute activation one, all right? We're going to lie down on the ball in psoas, and then we'll go into a quad release one with rotation. So Brady's going to lie face down. He's going to work into the inguinal crease here, looking for psoas on the inside with the ball. He's going to lie down. He's going to bring his opposite knee up, all right, and he's going to keep this as flat as possible, okay, so it's driving pressure into the ball. Then what he's going to do is he's going to squeeze that glute, engage, try to raise up, okay. Now at the same time I want you to inflate and create pressure here, stabilize the spine, good, perfect, now raise, good. Try not to dump that into the low back. If you find yourself seesawing into the low back, right, stop. We would do a different one at that point. So we are retraining the relationship between glute and psoas in this guy, right? And that's gnarly. How does that feel?
Gnarly.
Yeah, gnarly. Good times. So all you need is 4 to 5 reps on that. So you can find 1, 2 spots. Then we're gonna get into the outer quad muscle here, okay? This guy, on lots of people, is super locked up from sitting. For this, you're gonna work the outer part here. Actually, ready to stay down for me? Good, bring that knee up to a 45-degree angle, right? Now, he's gonna create a shelf that's stacked up like this, driving pressure down into the ball. You're gonna start right above the knee, about 4 inches above the knee. And this is gonna be your tell as to how much this is impacting squat position. So, that foot should have no problem getting to the ground. do we notice an issue here, right? That's gonna show up in his squat as an extension problem in the hips, okay? Because as he tries to load down, right, he's literally gonna hit that wall there. So, and how you doing there, Britt?
Yeah,
Freaking out?
feeling good.
Yeah, good. Okay, so now we have to put him through an active range of motion, which is really gonna suck, okay? I want you to just squeeze your glute, bend your knee, all right, and drop down. Now what's crazy is nobody believes this one's gonna get better. Literally in a week, his toes, possibly in a day, his toes will be on the ground. It feels horrific though. If you need to cover the ball with a towel to start, you can. And as we progress, bring this hand down to your side, we're gonna add an upper body rotation. So we're gonna connect this lat with that hip, all right? So drop that foot down for me, everybody. And then as you bend that knee and squeeze that glute, I want you to rotate. Perfect. Push that hand into the ground. Rotate, squeeze that lat, squeeze that lat, squeeze that glute, and then drop everything. Good. Try to get that foot down. Excellent, there you go, perfect. 3 to 4 reps. Work your way up towards the hip. This is a huge one that we use for runners and applies just as much for lifters because you won't realize that this is in here until you put that under compression and you'll know pretty quick how bad it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see Brady's face. He's loving this. So all you're gonna do is hunt around, 3 to 4 reps, 4 spots. Oh, it's even worse. Oh man. And you don't even need a friend to mash anything here. See how far his foot is away from the ground? Well, that's what we saw, right?
Oh, yeah.
In trying to get in that Bulgarian split squat and his couch stretch. It's so locked up. And that's why, if it was both sides, I'm not actually as worried about it. But it being way better on the one and way worse on the other, he's got to clean that up. Otherwise, he's going to have big problems in the squat. Good times.
Good times.
All right.
Great. So let's, Brady, you can stay face down there and get almost in the tactical frog position, but not a high stretch. So we're gonna work what's called the Komodo Dragon. And this is a great one for integrating that rotation of the shoulders. So a lot of times too, if you see people that are locked up in the thoracic and the hips, this is something, powerlifters, would be a great move. So put your arms out to the side like you're gonna do a push-up. And go ahead and come down, elbows at 90. So hands wide.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Move the hands out so your arms are 90 here. We want 90 here and straight across. So move your hands out wider. And a little bit wider again. Good, right there. Now we want broad shoulders. We want to stabilize this core here. So boom, come back down. Get your head up to neutral position. Feel that belly up right here. There we go. Bring the head up, release here. A lot of cueing to get this the way I want it here. Fill this up, Brady. Good. And back down a little bit. Good. Now we're getting better. Broader, wider with the shoulders. Good. Okay. Now, I want you to rotate and face your chest towards Brad. Hard, 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 hard. Good. Keep this core stabilized. Now the other direction. Good, good, good. All right. Now let's get down here in a lower position again so the hands are at 90. And now let's do this again. You're going to need to refix this. There we go. Broad, stabilize, rotate. Boom. And you should be rotating a little bit at the hips there too. There we go. And then now again this direction. This takes a lot of cueing to get correct. So I go into depth within this on the kabuki.ms. So let's go ahead and get up, and we may integrate this with a hip airplane. Very, very focused on stabilizing the core. So let's do the airplane. So from here, there we go. We're gonna really, again, wanna make sure that this is rigid and solid. Spread your arms out wide. Just spread them out here. Stabilize this super tight. Boom. Nothing. Broad shoulders. Okay. Now here, and now keep this. Don't lose this at all. Don't lose anything. And rotate through. Boom. Boom. Keep going. Keep going. No rotation here. Lock this up. Lock this up. Come back to neutral. Lock the torso solid. Now rotate through at the hip. Boom. As he's rotating at the hip this way, he's pulling the knee this way. So he's closing that hip and then working to open the hip. If you lock this solid, you should really feel this glute come into play. It's way different. And Brady, I want to step aside for a second. It's very different from just getting in position and going here loosely to locking, rigid and solid, and then rotating hard. You'll feel that glute come into play really, really hard versus just going through the movement. You want to be stacked at a 45 on top of the lower hip. And then we're rotating. So as I'm rotating this way, the knee's going that way to close and use the adductor. And as I'm opening, I'm pulling the knee away this way to open that up. So a couple different ways that, some pieces that we would pull from there.
It's beautiful.
I think we're on to assessment number 405 that we're walking through now.
Yes, this will be the last one, which plays in perfectly with what we were just showing, right? Which is looking at that thoracic rotation component, right?
Yeah.
In a simple way, where you can just check this at home, okay? Because this gets locked up on people so easily.
Oh, it does.
And it wreaks havoc, right, on your lifts. So, Brady, just lie down for me, and actually let's have your head face that way, and you lie this way. All right, so roll onto one side for me. Now, the cheat here that everybody does is they let their knee slide and they think that they have good thoracic mobility, and they don't, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring you into lumbar lock, bring your knees up to 90 degrees. If you have a partner, this is really handy because they can lock this knee out, right, so you don't cheat. And then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna rotate, look, and rotate as far as you can, okay? This is kind of a global assessment. So Brady's not too bad there. We're keeping him in lumbar lock, all right? You're gonna see a few things with this. You can see tightness across here, pec restriction, right? If his arm's just hanging out in the air here, right, but he can rotate pretty well through here, well, that's gonna be a front of the shoulder, anterior delt, pec, subscat problem, right? But he's clearing pretty good. I mean, I can still get my fists under here, so there's a little bit of cleanup work to do, but that's not bad, okay? So that's one side. Now we check the other side. Roll on the other side. Yeah. And if you don't have a partner, you can just hold your hand here just to make sure your top knee doesn't slide. But I'll lock this out for you. And rotate for me. Do we notice a difference? Okay, so that's that left-right pattern again, right? So we can see.
If you're close in, you would hear a pop too.
Yeah, he had this like huge pop, like this glorious pop, which is a big tell, right? So Brady is literally a classic example of how, right, you can have an internal-external hip rotation problem, a thoracic rotation problem, and an active leg raise and quad problem, right? And this is very common. This is why there's multiple pieces to this, right? It requires cueing. It requires active mobilization. You have to address those underlying restrictions, right? And those hidden trigger points and fascial like junk in there, right? To free it up, to be able to cue it even better, right? But you got to know where to look for that. Because for him, for example, it's different on either side, right? We had to mobilize this left, the vastus lateralis, psoas, internal rotation, external on the other side, right? And now he's got a rotation problem, right? That's not equal both sides. So we're gonna go through a mid-back activation release, right? Just to really kind of get transverse abdominis, diaphragm, mid-back relationship redefined. And then we'll do some cueing for rotation. Okay, so for this, you're gonna use 2 balls. And actually, let's go sideline. Or, yeah, perfect. So we're gonna look in the mid-back here, okay? You're gonna go 1, 2, 3 spots, lie on down, and you're gonna find something gnarly. So, oh yeah, that's it, all right? So drop all the way for me. Beautiful, so we're clearly on it, right? This is that kink point in here, okay? Where all that rotational force gets stuck, right? And it ends up dumping it into the low back and other places, right? But this is where we get locked up. Then, we're gonna use a weight, all right? Ready? We're gonna use this kettlebell. And we're gonna walk him through a diaphragmatic repatterning sequence. So, the cues are gonna be, push your low back onto the ground, you're gonna breathe into your chest, and you're gonna press the kettlebell up, doing a tiny crunch, And as you do that, you're gonna push the diaphragm down, increasing abdominal pressure, all right? So there's a few different things happening here because we're redefining relationships. So I want you to literally crunch into the balls, okay? This should suck, okay? So breathe into the chest, push your low back into the ground, push your low back into the ground, and crunch and press that kettlebell up. And crunch, 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 crunch. Press, 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 press. Good. And drop. Okay. You saw how much he struggled with that. He would not struggle with the crunch, okay? He's so used to recruiting that area in his back that once we take it out, it suddenly reveals the weakness that he's actually got going on here in stability. So this time, as you press, I want you to push your lips. I want you to go, I don't want you to breathe out a ton, just like 20% out. I want you to push that diaphragm down, increasing abdominal pressure. So push the low back. You can feel the shake happening here, okay? And drop. You only need to do about 4 reps of this, and then you're gonna move the balls up, all right? For everybody, there's gonna be a different area that's super locked up. You're looking for that spot. If you find it, right? For him, it looks like it's this one, all right? We might find some good stuff the next one too, but this is clearly, you know, an area that needs some attention for him. You can do an extra few reps on that. So, diaphragm, good abdominal activation, right? And retraining that dominant pattern of erector to transverse relationship.
So what would I do if we've got diaphragm issues and rotational issues? There's this fancy product called the shoulder rock.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yes.
right?
So that would be in his warm-up. You know, there's a lot of videos. I'm not going to jump through them because there's a whole lot of different things we could jump through that are available on kabuki.ms via thoracic rotation drills, sequences, entire progressions on scapular mobilization. But let's do a dead bug really quick. Very similar to what we were just doing here, but a nice easy movement for repatterning that diaphragm. And so we're going to lay without the mobility balls. But shoulder rock, with the cueing on the shoulder rock, we cover the diaphragm as well. It's actually an integral piece once you get the movement down.
He's got his mobility, and then using the shoulder rock to pattern that, right, and lock all that in is incredible.
Yeah. So here, I'm gonna have you raise up and go down a few times, up and down, not at the pelvis. So we're just kind of cueing this, because what I wanna do is, boom, have him bring awareness to the sternal position. We want to get a sternal crunch to cue the diaphragm, and you're gonna push down and fill these 2 areas full. Good. You want to hand me that kettlebell? So we're going to get up in triple flexion, 90-90, about basketball width apart here. And we've got this locked, we've got it pressurized, and you're going to reach up and grab that kettlebell, and you're going to take it out overhead while holding this position. We might want to grab the boomstick. This might be a little too heavy for him. There we go, and whoop. Don't lose this, there we go, don't lose that position, come back. Let's drop the weight down a little bit. There we go. Again, and right there. Come back, make sure that we're not losing that. And I would just do like 4 repetitions is it. We don't want to over fatigue our ability to stabilize before we actually train. Okay. Did that cover all the assessments we talked through? We did pelvis control.
We looked at the restrictions affecting pelvic tilt, cueing. Yeah, so that's an idea of how to quickly run through some self-assessments, right, if you're having any of that shifting problems, and to give you an idea of where your buckets might be for active mobilization and cueing, right, to try to wake up that nervous system, get it into better position, clean up your squat.
And it's really important to understand there's clearly not a one-size-fits-all answer to movement in the squat. You've got to understand what's going on and then develop a plan, a strategy for dealing with that.
Yeah, and these are just a few examples of repatterning techniques. We literally have hundreds of these, right? Yep. Just to give you an idea, right, of areas that would need to be worked and a few strategies to get there.
Yep, and same thing. We have a whole lot of things to pull from our bucket as well. But a couple different examples of ways to put this together and effectively deal with those issues that seem to plague a few people these days.
Yeah, like everybody.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Brad and Brady. I'm sure it was a good experience for you as well.
It was learning.
All right. If you want to maximize your strength
and the longevity of your athletic career, or just support the production of further content, click on this video to the link to our store to check out our full line of products.